Hi everyone, welcome to another weekly video. So I want to talk about two styles of arguing or fighting. Um, I don't know where this originates from, but I know that I've learned it several years ago in 2018 on a program that lasted a year about self-development. And this is just something that I kind of forgot about until a while ago when someone I knew talked about his response to an argument, and I immediately had that image back in my mind. There are two ways, generally, that people argue. One is the turtle, and the other one is the chimpanzee. And I just love that analogy because you get an image with it, right? You have the turtle who, once an argument starts, once that tension builds, the turtle just retreats. You get silent, you get quiet, you sometimes literally walk away. You need to get away from the situation because it's just too intense. There's too much shouting, there's too much tension, and there's too much feelings and emotion. And the turtle literally retreats and takes the time to gather themselves before they can get into a conversation. And there's the chimpanzee. The chimpanzee are loud. They are out there. They are the ones who need to get their feelings out immediately. So they scream, they blame, they tell them everything you've done wrong, and they are big. They might throw stuff. They're the types who explode, right? And once they get it out, they're usually okay. And that's just their style. So you have these two styles that are completely different. But a lot of times, whether it's in a romantic relationship, a work relationship, a friendship, a family situation, you can meet both these types of arguers. And it's interesting what happens because let's put them together, right? You have the turtle and you have the chimpanzee. And then you have an issue because the chimpanzee, they need to feel heard. That's why they get so loud, right? They get in your face, they get loud because they need to feel heard. They need to know that you get that they're angry, that you get why they're angry, that you get that they feel alone, abandoned, scared, all of it. And the only way they have learned to express that is through explosive, bang on your chest, anger in your face, out there, and you can deal with it. So can you imagine what happens when they have come across a turtle? They feel the need to be heard and the turtle literally walks away. They feel so misunderstood at that point that they want to explode even more, which makes the turtle run for the hills even more. So the chimpanzee feels genuinely heard, unseen, unheard, and just completely crazed at that point. Now turn it around. You have this turtle. You have someone who needs a moment to collect himself or herself when an issue arises, right? And you have an argument, and the tension builds, and you see that chimpanzee about to come out. And you're like, you know what? I cannot deal with this. I cannot deal with the amount of screaming, with the tension, with the throwing of stuff, with the temper tantrum. I cannot deal with that amount of energy. I cannot deal with that amount of blame. I need to get out. I need to collect myself and deal with my own feelings first before we get into this. And the chimpanzee is supposed to understand that, right? Because it's the safe option. If you need a minute, it's a safe option. So what's the big deal? So the turtle is gone. Sometimes literally out the room, out on the streets, just away. those doors close, or they just shut down and they just don't say anything. Right? If they have no ability to leave, they just say nothing. Just stay silent. And meanwhile, the chimpanzee is going on and on because the turtle is not responding. So apparently, you're not getting through to them. Apparently, you're not being heard. You're not being seen. You're not being respected. Because that's what the chimpanzee sees at that point. And the turtle is like, you have zero respect for me right now. I am clearly letting you know that I am overwhelmed, that I cannot deal with this. And yet here you are, and you keep blaming, and you keep shouting, and you're actually making it worse. So you have this turtle who gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and who feels so misunderstood and disrespected, and not seen, not heard, and completely overwhelmed. And his gorilla gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the turtle gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So that's an issue because now both of them feel like they're not being taken serious. And that's an issue when you're when you're in the midst of that. So you need to get that. You need to get that both of these types of arguers have their own ways and have their own insecurities and have their own ways of dealing with it. Like what the chimpanzee needs to know about the turtle is they will come back. It's not that they don't want to see you or want to hear you. It's not that they don't appreciate you or respect you. But right now, they need to deal with themselves and their own emotions first. They need to put this in perspective and take a breather. And then, when everything is settled down, they can come back and have a conversation. Not a fight, a conversation. That's what the turtle needs. And the turtle needs to understand that if the chimpanzee gets that big, it's not because they want to bully you. It's not because they want to make you feel small. It's because they are afraid of not being heard, of not being seen. And this is the only way they know how to get it out there. So it is intense, but it is a cry for help. It is a cry to be recognized. And a cry because they are in pain. They wouldn't do that if they weren't in pain. Animals don't cry if they're okay. So once a chimpanzee gets to that point, it has a reason. And it's not because of you. It's because of their emotions, their feelings of powerlessness. So it is pretty important to not take that personally. Even though in that whole situation they will try to make it personal. They will blame you for things. They will say things to hurt you. But know that it is not usually actually about that. It is just their way of trying to get you literally out of your shell to engage. So recognize that, know that, and try not to take it personally. And the chimpanzees, you'll need to get that it's not personal when the turtle hides in her shell. And shouting and banging on that shell more is not going to make the turtle come out. It's going to make it go in deeper. So a chimpanzee needs to know the turtle is not doing this to ignore you. It's not doing that because they don't care. It's not doing this because they're doing it because they need that time to recollect themselves. So it is absolutely useless. In fact, it's gonna make it worse if you're gonna start blaming and if you're gonna try to lure them out by saying hurtful things. It's just gonna make it worse and it's gonna last longer. So if you both get that and you can find a middle ground, that once that gorilla or chimpanzee, you can make a gorilla actually, who cares? Probably gorillas and chimpanzees care, but I don't. So once that chimpanzee starts to come out of you, realize that the turtle is going to disappear. And know that at that point, you might as well just announce it. Listen, I'm about to go off. I got some issues. We need to talk about it, and I'm about to blow up. So, just so you know, that's about to happen. And then when it does, you give the turtle some space. Like, then that way the turtle knows that it's coming. They can just prepare for all the information and then back away. And then you come back together and you talk about it. But you need to both not take it personally when that happens because it's just different styles. It's different communication styles that fit different personalities, right? So you need to kind of get that. And I just think that is very, very interesting because you see it happen so many times. And personally, I'm a turtle. I'm 100% turtle. If I'm in an argument, I'm gone. I need that time to collect myself. I do not have an immediate response ready. I do not have a sensical response ready. If I have the opportunity to walk away, I will. If I don't, I'll just sit there and nod and say, okay, I'm sure you're right. And then maybe 3 days later, I'll come back and say, you know what? Actually, you weren't right. You were full of crap. But that can actually take 3 days. So that's how turtle I am. And a chimpanzee just usually doesn't really get that, right? They're like, well, this happened 3 days ago. Why didn't you say something then? Well, because I couldn't. I literally physically couldn't. And that's just it's just good to know that these two versions exist. It's amazing when two turtles start to argue because you get into an argument and then no one says anything, and like 2 weeks later they get into the same argument and no one says anything, and that could just keep happening forever. And when two chimpanzees meet, you might no longer have a house left. The house might get destroyed in the process, but at least they work their shit out right away. It's it's an interesting dynamic, isn't it? But it is good to know that there actually are these two types, and you can look them up and just kind of get into it because it is so good to know what your type is and to know that the other type isn't doing whatever they're doing to piss you off. It's just different styles. Anyway, I thought this was a fun one to kind of get into with y'all, and well, I hope you have a good day. And if you have an argument, I hope you have an interesting argument. Bye.